Hello and welcome back to the next stage of sculpting here with our character. So this is where we sort of gotten to. So what we're going to do in this tutorial here is we're going to use some brushes to add in more detail. So we're in sculpt mode here. So I'm just going to jump out into object mode and I'm going to set the shading to be smooth, so we get a better view of our character. I'm going to jump back into sculpt mode here, and I'm going to re-enable dynamic topology. And you can see I've gone back to the flat shading, so just to be aware that that happens. So I'm going to press F, make my brush a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to add in geometry here that I'm then going to kind of smooth out. Just we are about to go through a process where having a bit more geometry here in some of these areas will be highly advantageous to us. No, oops, I don't mean to do that. Control Z and smooth that out and go across here. And across here. And smooth this out a bit. And finally, we'll just put in a little bit here. Okay, so let's try and smooth out any unforeseen lumps and bumps. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump back out into object mode, and with this here I'm going to again go back to smooth shading, and what I want to do now is I want to make more geometry. Because I want to use a brush. Now I could go and I should add in a lot more detail than I have here, particularly around lips, etc., but this is just for illustration purposes. So I'm going to go to a multi-resolution modifier and subdivide it, and now I've got 290,000 verts, and I'm going to subdivide it again to get over 1 million. And you can see my machine's having a little pause now to think about that. Now, I should probably bring it up a bit more, but this machine's not really going to support really high-end or high polygon models. So, I'm going to leave it like that. Now, I should be able to, I don't know if this is a feature of, because it's only an alpha version of Blender, but I'm going to apply this multi-resolution modifier. You can see actually it's got a setting for sculpt mode, so I should be able to go back into sculpt mode and avail of all of this extra geometry I've added in. But the last time I tried to do that, it crashed. So I'm going to hit apply here. And it's not a method I would normally use, but now that extra geometry, that 1.1 million verts, are now embedded in this. I'm going to go back to sculpt mode, and when you jump in and out of sculpt mode, just to be aware, the dynamic topology that we're using is turned off. So I'm not going to turn it back on, and leave it turned off and leave this shaded smooth. And now what I want to do is I'm going to go to my brush tool here, and I'm going to create a new brush, and I'm going to call this skin 1, and hit open. And I have 2 images here that I'm going to use. There's my reference image. I'm going to start, say, with this one here, and I'm going to use this brush here to add more detail to the character. So I'm going to start by putting in some broad strokes here. So let me see what brush I'm on. Clay strip, so I'm going to go to simply to draw, and so we'll turn on the brush for this one here. Okay, and we will left click, and you can see it's added this pattern in here, but it's quite strong, so I'm going to undo that by pressing Ctrl Z, and I'm going to reduce the strength of my brush down to say 0.14 here, and then put it on again. So I've just left clicked onto the model. Okay. So I may have gone too far in the other direction. It might be too weak now. Okay, so we can start to see it being added here. Okay, so this is going to make the kind of skin pattern on the model a lot more interesting and believable in terms of its pattern. So I'm going to use this kind of on the neck area, this pattern here, and then as I move further up onto the model and in this front neck area here, I'm going to use a different brush. So I'm going to create create a new brush. So hit plus here, and this is called skin.001, so it's called skin 2. And then we will go here and open our other image. So that one, we'll open that up. And then with this image here, you can see I've got an awful lot more kind of like lines that will give me a completely different sort of look to the model. Okay, so as with all of the brushes, if I zoom in, I'm gonna be drawing a much smaller set of detail. So by selecting the the scale at which you draw this, you'll get a very different effect onto the model itself. So what we want to try and do is have so pick the places on the model where we want the skin to have quite a kind of dramatic sort of pattern, and have it quite strong in those areas, and then not so much elsewhere. So let's see, we'll keep the cheeks kind of as blank as we can, but fill in these areas here with detail. Okay, and do the same here at our eyebrows, and you can see I've zoomed in considerably further, so these details will be smaller, sort of less visible from a distance, but will look considerably better if we have a close-up kind of render or shot of the character that features sort of these areas here. So now, using the same brush, we'll try and add in on these areas this sort of pattern. And had we not drawn on these with the brush, we would get a very kind of different effect because the geometry would have been so sort of sparse on this area. actually continue this down into some of the lower regions here. Okay, so we're going to do a tiny bit of sculpting along the lips here, just to kind of get a little more details. I'm actually going to turn off my brush for a second, and just very sort of gently, it's going to lift a little bit of this lip. Now keep in mind I don't have dynamic topology turned on, so I'm not adding any geometry at this point. All I'm doing is moving existing vertices. Okay, and then my machine has decided that this is probably too much for it, so I just want to try and smooth this out a little bit. So I'm very glad I didn't push up my numbers higher than that, or if I tried to do this I would probably end up crashing. You can see how much RAM, etc., how much memory I'm using. So that's still not quite how I want it to be. Okay, so we'll go back to using our brush, and we are going to go back to our draw tool. Let's see if we can add in a few details here on the lips. Okay. Okay, so that's not too bad at all. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to render this. So I'm going to jump back out to object mode. I'm going to save this as this one here as a backup. So I'm not overriding the first one. So we've got a good bit of detail in, far from perfect, but not bad. So I'm just going to very quickly jump to the render settings. So I'm going to swap out of the EV engine into the Cycles engine, and to GPU compute, and under performance I'm going to tell it to retile to 256 and 256. If you're going to use a CPU compute, you should have smaller tiles, and if you're going to use a GPU, have slightly larger ones without running out of memory though. So it's a balance that you're trying to get. You'll notice here we have a whole bunch of things, kind of residual items from when we were modeling. So it's going to remove these. I don't need to, but just tidying this up a bit. This is my head, so I'm going to rename that. And this sphere here is my left eye, and the other one is my right eye. Oops. Okay. And what we don't have here is we don't have a light. So I'm just going to click here and I'm going to go Shift A, add light, and we'll add a spotlight. And we'll position that here, rotate it a little bit and go G. We'll have a quick look and see if this item, this head, has any materials on it. And it does, so I'm going to delete that. So it has no material. I'm going to go Alt H and select this. This also has a material. And I'm going to hide that again. And that. And we're going to go back here. So this has no material. So maybe we'll go New. We'll call this Skin 1. And I'm just going to leave it as a generic base color. Now, I'm going to quickly go to rendered mode and see what Cycles does for me. And this is what it looks like at the moment. And I'm going to go to my world settings and say use nodes, and we'll make the world black. We can go back to our spotlight here, and we'll go to the attributes of the spotlight. Maybe we'll give it a strength of 300, so we have a little bit more light coming down. Maybe we'll rotate it fractionally. Okay, and we will now press 0 to look through the camera. Press N and go lock camera to view. So we'll zoom in. And our head is somewhere. Where are you? Oh, there we are. So we'll zoom in on that. And so that's roughly what we've got. So I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to render it. I'm going to press F12. And we should have our rendering down here off our graphics card. So it's going to jump into the rendered view, and we should see it render. And so this is our, you can see the hidden objects have been put back into the render, and this is our first sort of version of our character. Probably do with some more, a lot more detail, but not a bad start. Okay, so we're gonna stop the tutorial here, and we'll pick this up in class.